Hey YouTube, Andrew here, engineering manager at a medical startup and ex-software consultant at multiple early stage startups. Today, I wanted to talk with you about 5 books that changed the way I think about software engineering. These books I have either found or have been suggested to me by my mentors and fellow coworkers. I've read a number of books over the course of my career, but these have been the most impactful for me. The first book is called Clean Code by Robert C. Martin. This was one of the first books that was suggested to me, and it has a lot of helpful information for software engineers looking for guidelines to apply. Robert Martin is not shy about his opinions on how software should be written, and I appreciated that early in my career. Some of the key points that I took from the book are that naming is crucial to good software, and you should name your classes, functions, and variables well. You should always look for reducing complexity wherever possible, and functions should do one thing and one thing well and be small. Be consistent in what you're doing, and if something should do it a certain way, do all similar things in the same way. If you're using an if-else or switch statements, prefer polymorphism. Lastly, use dependency injection, and tests should be fast, independent, readable, and repeatable. Next up is the book Growing Object-Oriented Software Guided by Tests. This book is all about test-driven development and building quality in from the beginning. It was common in the early days in software development to wait until the end of projects to actually deploy them into the production environment. But this book actually advocates for building a walking skeleton and deploying a Hello World app all the way to your production environment to reduce risk up front. This changed the way that I thought about software, and I've used this in practice many times to de-risk projects and get them into production with fewer headaches. Other principles from this book include tell, don't ask whenever you're calling other methods or classes, the law of Demeter, which is avoiding excessive method chains or calls to multiple methods in a row, the testing pyramid, which outlines having a larger number of unit tests than integration tests than end-to-end, or you should have the fewest number of end-to-end tests. And the final one is if it's hard to write a failing test, it usually means the design of the system could be better. The third book in the list is called Refactoring, and it's part of the Martin Fowler series of books. It can be tough to know exactly what is involved in refactoring code whenever you start getting into software engineering. This book clearly outlines a definition of what refactoring looks like, and also how you can do it reliably and keep your code bases clean over long periods of time. Refactoring is restructuring the source code of an application or piece of software so as to improve the operation without altering functionality. To be able to do this, you should write tests to exercise behavior, then refactor your code to remove any unnecessary complexity. This allows you to work on writing your test skills and make sure that they're not too coupled to the implementation, and also have peace of mind that if the tests pass, then your code still works as intended. The last half of the book is pretty dense, but has very clear recipes for how to perform different types of refactorings based upon what code smell or scenario you are in. A code smell doesn't always mean you should be refactoring, but is something to recognize and think about. The fourth book in the list is called 99 Bottles, and it's by one of my favorite authors, Sandy Metz. I had the pleasure of participating in a workshop with Sandy Metz, where she came out to our company for a few days and hosted this workshop. I had read this book ahead of time, but being able to ask her questions and really dig into the topics in the book put it on another level for me. The book is about good object-oriented programming and refactoring. Sandy talks about the usual solid principles and goes through an example using the 99 Bottle song. The really cool exercise is doing one-line refactors where you can only modify one line of code at a time. This slows you down and really makes you think about how to keep the test green and exactly the recipe that you are to follow. This is a great book, especially if you're doing any object-oriented programming, and there's now even a JavaScript version. The last book in this list is called Extreme Programming Explained by Kent Beck. This book changed everything for me. Previously, I was a software engineer on a team, and I was responsible for getting my work done on time and at a reasonable level of quality. There was very little collaboration. I worked alone in my cubicle most days, and after weeks, my work would get merged into the main code base to then get scheduled for the next deployment. Usually this deployment was several months away. Whenever I joined a small nonprofit and started doing extreme programming like it says in the book, and working collaboratively all day, I got to learn more in a matter of months than I had previously learned in years of development. This team maintained several different systems as a small team of 5 to 7 members that you would have thought had a dozen or so engineers working on it. We wrote tests, discussed architecture, pair programmed all day, and consistently released small vertical slices of functionality for our product owner to provide feedback on. We were always learning together as a team and bouncing ideas off of one another, and it was a lot of fun. Here's some key points out of this book, but honestly, just go buy it and read it. It will change your perspective on software engineering, or at least give you an idea of another way of working. Some of the values that it's talking about include communication, simplicity, feedback, courage, and respect. Some of the practices that are performed in here include pair programming, test-driven development or TDD, continuous integration, small releases, relentless refactoring, the 40-hour work week, and collective ownership. If you have any books that inspired you or changed the way that you see software engineering, I would love to see them in the comments. And if you learned anything, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks.